We are live. It is 3:04 Central Standard Time in the United States, 9:04 BST. God darn it, in the UK. It's British summertime. It's a Nomad Tech Project with Sam and Joe.
Hey.
Coming to you live and broken. I messed that intro up. I always do the GMT. I think it's because I was working this weekend and everything's GMT.
So Sam, you're getting it wrong here, right, mate? This is where you say, don't talk about messing it up. That's how you was meant to do it. No one would know.
It was planned.
I meant that.
Anyway, if you are watching live stream, good on you. If you're not, you can catch it later on the YouTube channel, the Nomad Tech Project YouTube channel. But you also can listen to the audio. That's always available. If you're paying attention, we have Andrew, FatProduce, who decided to waste an hour of his life and come on into the show and never get it back. So welcome, sir. It's been a while. We were trying to get you on a more of a cadence, but then life happens and you travel and stuff and all that, new
travel, moving, and
life happens. So the cadence got a little wonky. So we appreciate you taking time to join us today. How you been, man?
I'm doing excellent. Yeah, thanks for having me. And also, we're not wasting time. It's a privilege to be here. It's a joy to be here. But yeah, no, it's great.
For me and Sam, it is.
Yeah,
a privilege.
We're fun. And like we try to make this enjoyable. And for those of you folks who are not who don't listen to, I happened to be a guest on a show yesterday. I was on the phone show chat with Steve Litchfield and Tid Salmon, which is always
very good show. Very good show.
A really awesome time. I was on last December, and Steve reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and said, "Hey, would you be willing to come on?" And I thought after the last time I was on, I thought usually one guest appearance usually is what sinks me. Most of the time they're just like, this guy's a moron. And then on top of that, I noticed that Steve's kind of seems to be very thoughtful. When he speaks, he's a little older than me, but a lot more of a kind of a quiet, laid back, but very intelligent gentleman. And to have me on the show kind of I think throws off the vibe a little bit because I am a little bit of a loudmouth, a little outspoken. And then he threw me some shade at the end of his show, which was kind of funny, which I thought was good. It was all good fun. I think they actually enjoyed me having me on. Obviously, I was on a second time, but I think he was just getting, we have a 2-hour show. We'll probably be with this guy. We can probably make it 2 hours because, he's always got a lot to say. I'm like, yeah, that's probably fair.
Quantity of speech is not something I struggle to attain. So.
Right. And like I said, I've always been never also for a loss of words, or at least I try to, at least if I'm going to run my mouth, at least I try to say something at least it's fairly enjoyable or maybe pithy or possibly funny. Sometimes no, I'm just word spewing, and
I'll say I've made you lost for words a few times with my randomness.
Well, and just sometimes and it's like and it's on the show, but for the most part and I always tell people, when Joe and I and here's the funny thing. Here's the great disparity between the phone show chat and what Joe and I do. Like, Steve will provide you the show notes, and they are extensive. I mean, there is
very good.
It's not scripted per se, but he has talking points, and they're in paragraph form, and they go right down the list. And it's literally pages of show notes. And so I always do myself. I usually don't pay attention. Usually on those shows, I'll just kind of go and just talk and just kind of go off the top of my head. But I always make sure for the 2 times I've gone on that show, I try to read the notes and try to see what's going on extensively. And they're
it's best.
And they're very prepared, and they're very, but they also, they use it as a guidepost. They don't just follow down the line, right? They just kind of use that. Very prepared. And it's also, they're professionally been doing that show for 16 or 17 years straight or some silliness. It's been a long time. So it's funny being on that show and being a guest and then seeing their level of preparation. It just makes me, it just shows me that we're amateurs here, which is fine.
It's actually edited as well. They do edit.
Yeah. It's always
when you listen to it, it's very seamless, and it's very natural still. So he does a good job of editing it.
Well, he edits, and that they do a good thing. So when they're recording, but if they make a mistake, like they had a couple of points, they'll make a sound marker, so that way Steve can go back and edit that, and kind of a very good job. It's very professional.
Such a clever idea, because obviously the sound wave goes like that with a clap.
Right.
He looks for the.
Yeah, you can look at. You'll see the clip of the noise and the sound.
Clips it out, yeah.
It's so it's really clever, and it's well done. And it's always an honor to be on that show. And I always try to make sure that I don't sound like a complete and utter maniac. So that was cool. So check it out. It's actually been posted if you want to listen to it. We have a pretty good conversation because he gives me a little bit of trouble I'm not in a little bit of trouble, but he gives me a little grief about, he has a rant about why everybody kind of dumps on Apple all the time. And I told him that I actually dump on everybody. I mean, I've been very critical of Microsoft. I've been very critical of HTC and LG and all these companies. Yeah, I'm pretty much go after everybody. And it's not because they break the law, but they do have a tendency to do very anti-competitive consumer stuff. A lot of companies do, but Apple seems to do it as well. And I think for some reason, because people are such fans of their products, they kind of get a touch of a pass on that.
Well, it's kind of,
it feels like, I don't know if that's true. It just feels that way to me. And I guess because I'm passionate about it, when I get on a rant and I get pissed off and I want to launch into people, companies, not just generally people. It just, I guess for him, it sounded like I was kind of being unfair in some of my commentary to Apple. And and that was interesting feedback. I'd never really thought about that way.
To be fair, Apple's usually the first person to do it. Then all these manufacturers copy Apple. So like Samsung,
that's true.
Apple is the one who sets the tone for it, and then the rest of the industry follows. So in my personal opinion, I do think that it is that Apple shoulders a larger amount of the burden for these practices in the industry as a whole than the other manufacturers do.
Yeah, and I do think that they and again, remember, they don't have to worry about other OEMs, right? It's all Apple. So they don't have to worry about Google and Samsung and Xiaomi and Vivo and Realme and OnePlus and all these other companies, right? They have a little bit more of functional and control. Also their peripherals, right? And and I didn't get a chance, and I kind of didn't feel. Obviously, I didn't feel that Steve was coming in on me about it. I think he was basically making a commentary about how people do it, and so I thought it was interesting feedback. I never really thought about it that way, and I did tell him that, I at least wanted to clarify that I think that I may be a little bit more critical of Apple, maybe not for the reason Andrew, because I didn't really actually conceptualize it that way until he mentioned it. But I think I give Apple a little bit more heat. It's probably because I'm not a fan of their products. I like their hardware. I'm just not a fan of iOS. I just don't like it as a general.
I mean, I have a bias for Android devices, so that's why.
I also like, because I guess what it is with me, I like choice in hardware and software, right? I think that Android, for a person like me, gives you that, right? You have different form factors. You have foldables, flippables, different manufacturers, different skins of Android. You can go totally AOSP. You can go completely customized. You can, flash ROM, sideload stuff. You can kind of go completely rogue. Apple, obviously, because their user base, like for somebody like my wife, doesn't care about any of that stuff. She just wants the phone to work, and it does work. And no matter if she gets a 12, if she upgrades to a 16 next year, let's just say she does, there's no difference in the hardware. Yeah, but the software experience is completely familiar because it's iOS 18. And I do think, to Apple's credit, they're the ones that are driving the longer software updates, right? They drive that, because for years, yeah. And I think it's a little too late, and then that kind of thing.
I was gonna say, sure as hell ain't Sony who's driving that shit.
Yeah. And then look at the fact that those OEMs, and also another thing that they don't do, which is another criticism I have of Microsoft and of LG and of HTC and all these companies that are no longer with us in the Android space, is they don't spend $1 to tell you about the device. Pixels came out until the Pixel 4. Nobody ever used one. They were wondering why nobody's picking these things up. I'm like, because nobody fucking knows they exist, dude. Finally, Google decided to throw a few ad dollars behind it and actually get some sponsorships and get it in the media and get it in sports and get some visibility to it. And God forbid, what would you do? Look, people are picking them up now a little bit more. And
the thing is, though, Sam, it's ad dollars spent in the right way. So, like, advertising things that are going to affect people's lives, right? So the best take, I say to people, you heard about Google phones? And they're like, no. And I say, have you seen that you can get a picture of all your friends and they can all be smiling? Oh yeah, I've seen the advert for that. So they don't know what a Google phone is, but they know that particular feature.
Well,
so that's good advertising in a sense.
And it's two first. Like there's not only, it's like what you said, like you don't want to have another Aubrey Plaza LG commercial issue where they're just showing off assistant for when they're supposed to be advertising LG phones, but also it's a matter of placement. So there's the creative messaging, but also like you need to have, I work in advertising, so it's like you need to have awareness. So like put billboards, like when the what was in the 7 was coming out, like we saw Pixel 7 and 7 Pro, we saw billboards everywhere, like for awareness, video ads, like just for awareness, not just getting people to go and click and go to download.
Well, in movie theaters, I saw they had a lot of times they were having spots like Samsung always did in the Super Bowl and major sporting events, right?
Mm-hmm.
Google is starting to kind of get those little blurbs in there, kind of getting, and that's something
Google
they had not done in the past.
Google sponsor England, Liverpool, and Arsenal. So all over their socials all the time, there's Google Pixels with the players with pixels, and that's what you mean by placement, right? Like,
well, that and just like getting a wide, because it's like a funnel, you know. So you have like awareness, and then it goes down. Then you get down to like, you know, if you're trying to advertise to people to actually like go and buy, you know, and the funnel gets narrower as you get to the bottom into consideration. But it's one of those things where it's just awareness is like the first step. They don't even step in. Like a lot of these manufacturers, like LG and Sony, have never even like stepped inside the funnel. You know, it's so it's just
what funnel?
Yeah, it's like right, exactly. It's so they like, and it's kind of like in the book that I read a while ago called Samsung Rising. It was written around the same time that the Note 7s were exploding, and basically Samsung up to a certain point, up until like the Galaxy, the S1s, they basically had the thought that their engineering would speak for itself. And then they weren't selling phones, and then they had to switch, and the LG never got out of that philosophy ever.
Yeah. And also think about it with LG, it's a little different because LG has an entire consumer products division, right? They weren't living on their mobile division. They had their appliance division. Fun fact, LG appliances suck. So you're clear.
Yes.
No offense. I mean, if you're an LG fan, here's the thing. I have an LG.
The TVs are good though.
TVs are great. Their phones are really good. I thought their consumer products division, same thing with Samsung. I will never, ever buy a Samsung refrigerator, washer, dryer, ever. And it's just because and I've taught, and it's not just me. I've had one and it just blew up, the refrigerator. But I've talked to industry people who are doing repair work and stuff like that, and they will all tell you steer clear of these things because. And then everyone's like,
microwave.
Well,
it's been pretty silly.
And when somebody, and I said to somebody, they had made a comment that basically it's like a bunch of, you know, these repair people, a bunch of good old boys and like blue collar guys, just like America. And frankly, we make the okay. It wasn't that. It's they're going to these calls and they're seeing that either the same parts failing, they're replacing the same issue, and also part availability has been a problem.
It's
refrigerator. The refrigerator, I couldn't fix it is because the part, there was 8 other people waiting for that same part from the manufacturer.
It's the same company. It's the exact same companies that are having right to repair issues with their phones and like other electronics, and they're doing, and it's the same culture that's in the appliances, and it's just I'd rather stick with a one that just has a better track record, and like you said, it's just the same stuff that keeps failing, and they have the same exact. Like they have the exact philosophy where it's like, well, just buy the next generation. Well, no, I'm not buying I'm not buying another washer or dryer in the next year.
Right. And I guess what it was is too, and because they, unlike Apple, because they don't, have an appliance division, right? Because Samsung and LG could kind of absorb that, it's really a division, they could let that kind of peel away as underperforming, and LG corporate can kind of absorb that and just kind of go, okay, we'll move on from it, because they do also, displays. Samsung sells displays not only to them sell their phones, but other phones, right? It's a large company. And so I guess so it was an interesting conversation I had, and really it was just kind of Steve's rant. And again, I don't really care if you have an iPhone, because I'm going to be perfectly frank. I went to an Apple store. My wife was doing something at a mall, and I was just kind of burning time, and I really didn't want to do anything. She was going to be in about 25 minutes. And so I went up to the Apple store. And one thing I noticed is there's always 4,300 people in the store. I don't understand. It's the busiest fucking store I've ever seen in my life. And people aren't like, some people are looking at products, right? Some people are looking at phones, and some people are looking at, stuff. But then there's a whole bunch of people just sitting around. And I asked, so I walked up to the computers because I was interested in, a Mac Pro and all this kind of. I'm looking at the computers and trying to decide, what I'm looking at, not knowing really about much of the hardware and stuff. And so the lady approaches me and we're talking, and I said, can I just ask a question? Why are there so many people in here? And it's repair. People are waiting on repairs, either getting a phone fixed or an iPad or whatever. That's fine. And there were other people. And then she goes, they have classes where they talk about how to use the device and the features of the device. Like, and that I think is another thing that I really kind of think that Apple has that a lot of these other companies don't. Because if you live in New York or Chicago or LA, sure, there's a Samsung store and a Google store. If you live in St. Louis, there isn't. If you live in, you know, Kansas City, if you live in Albuquerque,
Carlton Regis.
It's just, you know, and I understand that they can't do all that, but I understand that 7 million or 8 million people live in New York. But the problem is with Google and Samsung is they have actual stores for repair and that kind of thing, but they're only in 4 cities. And it's like, well, not everybody in the United States lives in, and I'm not driving to Chicago just to go to a Google store or a Samsung store, right? And that's what I like about Apple. There's an Apple store at the mall in St. Louis. There's actually, I think there's 2 technically where you can go. And if you need a repair, like Becky's battery on her iPhone 12 is actually down to like 68% capacity. You know, she's had it for a long time. So we're going to replace the battery, right? I could go and set up an appointment and do that. You can't do that with anything else. And Michael had made a comment about the repairability, and you know, and that way you don't have to either go through a carrier or you have to go through some janky ass third party Allegiant kind of crap, and it's like a deductible and a bunch of bullshit. And I hate that.
Well, with Samsung, they have a partnership with what was it, iBreak, You Fix, or you?
Oh yeah, iBreak, or You Brick It, or iFix It, or something like that.
Yeah, and they're like authorized. And so my old Note 20 Ultra before I sold it, it was one of those things where I had a dbrand skin on the back, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to sell this thing, and I'm like peeling it off, and I'm like, oh, I shattered the back at some point. I didn't realize. And so I had to go get the back replaced, and it was pretty good doing it through that because they got the actual parts, but they had to go order the part and everything. But with any other manufacturer, like, no, you're SOL basically. You're going to be going to doing hardcore third party repairs, and that's why I've kind of had sweaty palms with my Sony phone a little bit, just because I'm like, okay, don't drop this thing. Do not break this thing.
They're opening up a Google store in Boston, right? So, and next to it's a Dunks, so you can get yourself a large regular and a Corolla, right? Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
It's very hard to pronounce our R's in Boston,
right? You know? But it's funny. But again, there's a large city of Boston. They're getting one in Boston, and Luis says that you're getting a Google store. I'm pretty sure Luis doesn't live in like Bismarck, right, or Fargo, North Dakota, or you know, or Dakota, yeah, or he doesn't live in some, you know, he lives in a major city probably, and that's the problem. That's what I do like about Apple, the fact that if you do have an issue, you can take it to an Apple store and actually have you know, first party service. So there are things, like I said, I guess I just didn't look at it it's all of its totality, and I told Steve, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of insane sometimes. Well,
so there are advantages to owning the entire vertical. You know,
right? Oh yeah,
and you know, and that's one of those things where it's like any company that, like, especially Android, is just not going to have that advantage unless it's Google, but Google just doesn't leverage it very well. But it's just one of those things where it's a trade-off. You're never going to have that level of integration on Android's side, really. I don't think, based off of culture and everything. But then you do have the advantages of hardware choice. So it's like, you know, it depends on what your priorities are.
So right. Again, it depends on Sam. The problem with having brick and mortar is it's very costly, right? So to have stores with them rent, overhead, staff, it's so costly. Apple can afford to do it, and they're busy, and that's why they can't just open them in any little town as well, because it's just
that's the difference. Is Apple does have them everywhere. They have Apple stores in malls. They're not.
Well, I mean, they can do it, but they're probably the only ones that can. And not in the UK.
Google and Microsoft can completely fucking do it. That I'm not giving them a pass on.
Yeah, maybe Google could do it in the US.
And Microsoft did do it. They had Microsoft stores. They had them in malls, and they pulled them out because Microsoft didn't want it. And now, to be fair, they were nowhere near as busy, right? And nobody needs to go into a store to learn how to use a Windows computer. Most people who have computer sort of knowledge, even my parents, who I wouldn't call them tech savvy, and they have an older computer. They just bought a new one. They don't need to know how to use a Windows computer.
I'd say Windows could have more going on. Like, you got Excel, you could learn Excel just alone. There's loads of things you can learn. Well, so I think they could have loads going on.
Well, it's just Windows hardware for the most part isn't sexy.
No,
like that's the thing. Like there are exceptions.
The Surface lines are pretty nice.
Their Surface lines are nice, but here's the other issue though too. So at my old work, it's interesting. This is where if you're working, especially if you work in something where you want to have resolution in your display, like I work in spreadsheets a lot, the go with a Mac. Because what I've realized was, so when I first started my job, I was given a Surface Book 2, which was awesome. I loved it. But then where I worked stopped working with Surface products. And so they made me give it back, even though there's nothing wrong with it. And they gave me a crappy Dell that had a horrible display. And it was a significant downgrade. And that actually affected my workflow. And so with my new job, they gave me a Mac OS, which I was an Intel MacBook, and I was like, "Oh no, I've had more experience with Linux than with the Mac OS." But the display is so nice.
And and that's what caught my attention at the store was on the separate displays, right? And I was because I already have this really nice HP display, right? And I just like, do I really want to buy a display, right? Because I have a really nice one. And I could just get the Mac Studio thing, and I just don't need that's what's kind of nice, right? I could just buy the little thing. And I was trying, but then I don't get the Retina display, and that's kind of cool. But then I look at the price, I go, well, that's, again, you got to pay to play, right? I get it. Well, right. That's fine. But that's what I noticed, just how, man, I don't know what I was looking at. It was probably the highest end, because I'm sure I was, and they had the highest end display. But man, that thing was crispy.
Guys, dude, Best Buy sell Apple products, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. I don't know. I just happened to be at the mall waiting for my wife, and I just walked into an Apple store, and I was like, dude, I honestly, now I don't know if I would use Mac OS. I'd probably rock a Linux. I would probably use it for Linux, or I do other stuff with it. But it was nice. It was cool. So I get it. And Steve basically just was like, I think a lot of people kind of are treating Apple unfairly, and I don't 100% disagree, but I don't 100% agree with that. I think that Apple should take any heat that they get, especially on things that they've been kind of busted for, like the whole throttling the battery gate, right? And all those kinds of things. I think any company should take it on the chin for their silliness, right? And that kind of thing. So
the one thing I would say I could flip on Steve though is Apple users are very unfair on Android people, especially in the US.
But that's not.
I know he's talking about tech podcast.
Well, he's talking about company proper. I don't think he's talking about the user base. Although you're right, and that's why I want to kind of keep it.
But that's what creates that bias and creates that them against us. Even as a tech YouTuber or podcaster, you've got friends that are Apple fans, and you have them discussions day to day, and it does rub on you, it does rub off, and does create that animosity towards it.
Right. And like I said, and he's right. And I did notice that was the one thing I did notice I didn't like is all the configurations. There was a lot of qualifying, like some you could, and this one didn't have this chip, and this one you had to buy. And I guess Windows does that too on their Surface line. I don't know. And I guess I didn't have this, like with the Windows, when you're looking at a Windows computer, you can kind of look down the spec sheet and kind of say, okay, this. With a Mac, it was a little more vague. I didn't see like pound for pound, like what this, like, you know what I mean? It was kind of more, it was more like, well, it does all these things, and this is what you get, and right? And it's a lot less spec responsive, and it's more of, I don't know, it just had a different vibe to it. But I did like it, and I would actually consider getting a Mac at some point. Because I don't use my computer for a lot of gaming anymore. I used to, but not really anymore. So we'll see. I mean, it's kind of cool. But I did appreciate Steve's feedback, and I had a good time on the show. I always find it to be utterly great, and I do like their professionalism, and they're two really, really fun guys to talk to. So if you get a chance, check it out. I'm not going to spoil much more about that, because if I tell you everything I said, then you won't listen to it, and then they won't get as many clicks and engagement, and I don't want you to do that. But it was a good show, and they have some fun with me a little bit, and although they thought I was going to they made a comment about the EU's position on the consumer and they thought I was going to go, well, I believe in fuck freedom, drinking, and fuck the seatbelts, right? They thought I was going to go,
but maybe you did.
They thought I was going. No, they thought I was going to go there, and I kind of didn't go there, and I think that kind of messed them up a little bit. So I think they kind of had me a little bit pigeonholed into that typical Midwestern American, and it wasn't it wasn't just for. I really honestly felt that way. I really do believe that. I'm glad I did that. So, anyway, so it was kind of a good show. So check that out. Again, it's downloadable and listenable now. Show 815, I think it's 815 or 816. I can't remember. Yeah, you figure it out. Just look at the fucking date. You'll see my name on it. You can't. Jesus Christ, it's not that hard, folks. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get it out of the way. So, man, what is it with pixel events and all the shit hits the fan? God damn, man. It's like I know Samsung has them, and OnePlus has the events. And then, people talk about them, but man, it seems like every time there's a pixel event, motherfuck, does everything kind of go.
Well, the event went smoothly, didn't it? It's not.
Well, the event was nice, actually. I think. But I'm saying the fallout and the controversies and the bullshit that spiral out of control. It's like going to your grandmother's house for Thanksgiving, and Uncle Jed and everybody's fighting in the front yard. It's just
hashtag Team Pixel.
This is where I think that Michael Fisher. Actually on his Instagram, he actually just so people see, he had a like a 30-minute video where he interviewed higher ups at the Pixel team.
I need to watch this.
Right, and it's actually really well done. He but he also had a separate bit where he was talking about addressing the whole Team Pixel issue. But basically, the whole problem is it's a problem of like siloing. Like there's influencer access, and then there's like traditional journalist access, and it's you have different experiences between those two, but then also like Team Pixel used to be much more of like an official sort of thing, and now it's just influencer, like an influencer sort of like they basically changed the definition of what it is without clearly telling people. And I'm sure they did that on purpose because it muddles that whole like perspective of Google an official Google thing versus like influencers getting access sort of stuff. And Michael Fisher did a really good job of like talking about this, basically the back end of like how this works. And he did a pretty good job, but it was basically Google didn't communicate it very well. And then they did later, but they just should have been proactive about it.
They made a mess.
Right. And then also with it was interesting because coming on to like the Pixel Fold, the 9 Pro, blah, 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 terrible name, but they like it doesn't have like the same camera that the 9 Pro and X Pro XL has, and there were some compromises with it. And Michael Fisher in his video like was pushing back on some of the stuff, like the fact that it was so expensive after we've been in the segment for 5 years and this shit is still expensive. And you're still compromising on the cameras, and the people at Google just kind of gave nothing answers. And he pushed back a little bit. Like it's more than he normally pushes back, which was good. Like this has been one of those things. I've started seeing this in some of his videos where like the recent John Deere trip he took. He's like, yeah, I can't take any more of these trips unless I'm going to get to ask you about your right to repair stuff. And I think that this is really good because for a long time we've had a lot of these companies, like people basically taking these companies fluffy bullshit at their own word, and where they talk around questions and then no pushback. And I'm happy to see that the culture is starting to get fed up with that a little bit. And I think some of that, like Gamer Nexus is probably the best example of where they push back on that sort of stuff, because they are fully confrontational with like Asus and a bunch of these other companies. And so I'm glad that we're finally starting to see we've reached kind of critical mass, because the blog sphere and the journalism sphere used to be like they were separate, but with the dawn of the internet and everything, basically they went together because the journalistic sphere has had trouble maintaining like making money, while all the money's in the blog sphere, and then they've combined, and then journalistic integrity kind of lessened. And so now we're getting back to where like there's so much BS getting thrown around by these companies that pushback is starting to come back into the main sphere again. And so it's refreshing. I was long-winded there, but
no, I'm glad, please, because everybody wants to hear other than me just run my mouth for one whole hour. However, I guess I'm trying to think how I want to formulate this take, because I don't want to be an asshole.
I'll just be an asshole. Go on.
But no, and I guess what it is.
Do it.
But I guess so. I have to think about it. So first off, I'll start with the caveat. This
I'll
is
stop you, Sam. When you're going to do this, turn around like Jim Carrey and actually talk from your ass.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, so here is. I'm kind of watching the comments, and everybody's making such great. And also, thanks a lot for everybody kind of joining up today. I know, you got a lot of stuff going on Sundays. It's a nice day. You know, what I mean, appreciate everybody kind of
Yeah,
jump in
100%.
the chat, and we always love that shit. It's great. Shit, not, you know what I mean. Anyway, so I'll start this off by saying, if anybody ever wanted to know why I don't review phones and get into that sphere, all this shit that's been going on the last couple of days is exactly why. First of all, none of this really matters at the end of the day, right? This is elective shit you're talking about, right? You don't need to buy any of these phones. You don't have to buy a Pixel. You don't have to buy a Fold. It's $1,800. Well, you know what? A GT 500 is $100,000 Mustang. You know why I don't consider buying that car? Because I can't afford it, and I'm not spending $100,000 on a fucking Mustang. As much as it's a badass car, right? It's a beautiful vehicle. It's not in my range, right? So for people to complain about a phone you'll never buy, you're not interested in foldables and anything else, it's kind of horseshit. No offense.
Yeah.
If you're in that space, I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying it's like complaining about a Ferrari. You're not fucking buying one.
Yeah.
Somebody is buying one, and it's not your job to tell that person that that car is not worth $300,000. The reason why it is because there are people out there who buy that car. Mustang made a GTR. They made 300 of them. It's a $300,000 car. It's a track focused car. Who's buying that fucking thing? Are you taking to a track every weekend? If you are, then you clearly don't have to worry about money, right? So what I'm saying though is the arguments about phones being worth what they are and being too expensive to me has always been a specious argument, because it depends on who you are. I think it should come down because you're right. But here's the thing. There are people like Joe who aren't really about that foldable life. He's tried them. It's just not it. Now, if the foldable was $800, would Joe buy it? Possibly. Would Joe keep it? Probably not. Right? It's just not for him. So again, that's it. And I'm glad that Micro Fisher is kind of cutting back at these companies and kind of catch them on their shit. But that's what journalists do.
Right.
None of these people are journalists. Can we spread this out a little bit? Marquez Brownlee. I like Marquez. I've never met the man. I'm sure he's a super cool dude. He's built a company from, look at his trajectory, right? It's fantastic, right? And then he is what a lot of these people aspire to be as far as that. He is not a journalist. He's never tried to be it.
And he's gotten into heat recently because of that, basically, right. because he took Apple's bullshit at face value. It's just part of, I guess it's like, it's the influencer side is so close to marketing, because these companies have learned that, like, well, if we can kind of manipulate how our terms and on access, we can basically make them an unofficial arm of our marketing. And now these influencers are like, no, I actually don't want to be doing that. But part of the problem is like Marquez Brownlee, like he took, like in that infamous interview with Tim Cook, he just took all of Apple's bullshit at face value when it came to like the stuff that's right. the obvious bullshit,
Yeah, my only counter to that was, but he's never tried to represent himself as an investigative journalist or anybody else. He's always been a guy who was talking about that. That's what his job has been. That's what he's built his empire based on, right? And I get all that.
Yeah.
Again, do what you want to do, and at the end of the day, it's like. It's interesting that, the Team Pixel thing came up, and the reason why people are leaving Team Pixel is because they added, I guess, the stipulation or whatever that says you have to use that phone predominantly, right? You have to, and if you basically use any other device or try to push it all, then we can cut the contract with that, which is fine. But it's like, but it puts reviewers in a bad position because they have to use the phones, they have to use them. They could be seen in situations where they're using the phone, right? But I think people need to kind of take. I think everybody who is in the tech community and everybody who is like us and that watches and consumes this, I think we all need to kind of take a break here. Let's kind of like start to retract a little bit and kind of start to kind of pull back and see what all this really is, right?
Well, I would.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would agree, though. I will say, especially Samsung's case is probably the most blatant in this, where. I don't think you have to be an enthusiast to understand that, especially in the foldable space, but even in the high-end Galaxy space, Samsung does not have enough actual competition because it's affected they're doing the barest minimum, and they're raising for any sort of upgrades, and they're raising prices at the same time. At that point, they are just gouging people. I think we have started to reach a critical mass now where it's the lack of competition in North America is severely negatively affecting the market as a whole now. And so now it's become more than just a niche issue. It's you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I do, but I'm more approaching it from the tech creator.
Oh yeah.
I still think at the end of the day that I think that really keeps these companies honest and keeps consumers basically with choices and they have some engagement and some empowered the market, right? Is the fact that they can change and switch, right? And that's what I like about the car market, right? If you don't like a Honda, you can buy a Toyota, you can buy a Buick, you can buy a Bronco, you can buy it. There's a lot of that kind of thing, right? You can spend your dollars and kind of vote with your wallet, which a lot of people say. When it comes down to the space, when it comes to that, it's fine. What I'm talking about is, Michael Fisher decided to kind of push back on Google, but finally,
right.
Well, and now, I guess my question to Michael Fisher would be, what is the impetus for that? Like, what is causing that change and that shift? Is it because you've decided that you want to be the tip of the spear in the tech journalism, tech influencer, tech creator space, and you want to try to push that, hoping that others will follow and kind of try to direct these conversations to Microsoft and Google and Samsung and Apple and really kind of start to kind of push into those boundaries, right? But then it's going to require you to kind of be, you have to get out of those team pixels, or you have to get out of that sponsored content. You have got to kind of be more, and if you're going to fight the war, you've got to be independent from that.
Yeah.
If you want to, and if you don't, you don't have to. It's fine. I'm just curious. How
might be like the size that he is now. He feels confident to be able to do that. Because you need to be pretty large, don't you, to be able to do that?
Oh, I would argue that Michael Fisher's been larger than just this last week.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I know.
Well,
I know.
And his whole thing too is like the Mr. Mobile brand is an interesting thing where it's like also owned by what used to be Mobile Nations and all that stuff. So it's like, it's not just him doing that. That was like a branding exercise with the larger companies. So that's why he still has that Captain Two Phones persona in there, because Mr. Mobile's not technically just owned by him.
Right. And I agree. I am also loving Andrew's background.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. This is, I'm broadcasting from my Constellation class starship,
This is why we call him Captain.
Right. And like I said, and Luis makes a comment. He's not a solo creator, and he works for a company. He's spoken about it before. Fine.
Yeah.
Again,
he's very transparent about things, which I do respect.
And I do. And I like that. And so, like I said, I really think that at the end of the day, we have to understand that. I think, to me, I look to smaller creators, or I look to the people like the Adam Matlocks, the Shane Scary Flittles, right? I look to those people. If I were really going to look for a device that I was actually going to purchase and find out what those sets are, I'm not going to a Marquez Brownlee. I'm not going to an Aaron. I'm not going to those people. I'm just not. I mean, it's not. And again, to me, I think for me, there's a delineation between tech entertainment, tech reviews, and then tech journalism.
That goes to what I was going to next say. Like, Sam, people go to these channels for different things. Some people go they watch videos about the device they've already got, just to be proven that they're right. Oh yeah, I made the right decision. And then
you're like me, where you get the Sony device, and then you watch Dan's channel and he's like, it overheats and it sucks. And I'm like, nah.
It's
that
interesting.
Video would have been great a week ago. So
it is interesting because it's like Linus is one of those ones where it's entertainment. Like Michael Fisher, it's kind of a mixture on those, but it's also like entertainment because like when phones are fun sort of thing, and his presentation's really good. Like when it comes to like Juan Bagnell, his stuff, it's like if I want to learn something.
It's educational. And I think with Michael Fisher, I think he's always been a reviewer. He's just entertaining to watch. He does review stuff, but he's just very well spoken.
His B-roll is great.
B-roll's great. He's always making really good comments. He's very good at what he does. And but I don't think to me it's never been entertainment. To me it's been entertaining.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
And I think that's a delineation because there's people who are definitely more entertainment focused, right?
That's like Ice Justine.
Right.
She's like a lifestyler, you know?
Yeah. And so again, it's one of those things where I just think everybody needs to kind of it's okay to have an opinion, and we're all fans of stuff, right? Because and honestly, you know what tech reviewers remind me, or tech community people, they remind me of sports fans. They're really the same.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You really don't know what the fuck
and
is
that
going
goes
on.
to my point as well, Sam, right? An Arsenal fan watches Arsenal videos. A Samsung fan watches Samsung channels, really. Do you know what I mean? That's what happens.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. But fans, regular fans like us we don't work for the team. We're not, we're totally biased. We're not objective at all about it, right? We are just like, and these players, but at the end of the day, it's like, everybody gives me shit. They're like, the Bears are probably getting maybe pretty good. They might actually have a decent season, right? But they're like I'm not getting a check from Hallis Hall. Like they don't send me money. I like the team and I enjoy. Yeah. I like to follow them. But I mean, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter that if the Bears go 0-16 or 0-17, I'll be upset about it. I'll be disappointed, but it doesn't affect anything.
Well, it's also one of those things too, where like the reviewer, like they're just like. Reviewers, there are different types of people who put importance on different things. Like for example, Issa is an example where like she puts a huge amount of emphasis on like lifestyle and style. Like, and that's just not something that I do, but like there's value in having a review. So like influencer stuff aside, there is value to having a review coming from someone whose perspective is for a specific subset of audience who's going to be looking for that.
They do these nice colors, they do nice cases that go
right. Or what if somebody who's like, I really like I'm doing lots of email, and they put value on like keyboards. Well, like that's going to be like a value. You're going to put more value as somebody who's maybe looking at like say like a Unihertz keyboard phone, that from somebody who's going to actually have experience and is looking for something like that versus like iJustine trying to review it and you getting nothing out of it,
like Petapixel doing the camera stuff. That's a niche where they're only looking at the camera.
I love this comment. Different opinions are fine, but double standards though are not. I agree, but that means people aren't totally full of shit. Well, they can be because they have to be, right? That's why the Pixel guy didn't answer Michael's questions honestly. Because that's like politicians do the same thing, right? People do that because they know the answer and they just have to kind of wordsmith around it. And it's like, and the funny thing is, that's why, I think that that's why I think people are so wanting somebody just to be genuinely authentic, even if they're a liar, because at least they're like, we know what the answer is to those Pixel questions. When you were watching that interview, you knew what you think. Well, you know what I would say? I'd be telling Michael Fisher, hey man, this is how we do it. We want to do it this way, and we did it this way, and we did it this way, and we did it this way. Right. And you can't do that because that's why I'm not an executive, clearly, at any company, because I'm not a forward-facing employee. Right. Because I would just tell people, because here's the thing. My thing has always been this. If you're a company, you make decisions, you should own those. Even if they're unpopular, even if they're going to cause a stink, even if you're going to catch it on the chin. Like a lot of these people, you watch TV shows about either political stuff or whatever. I don't care. Pick it, whatever. They could be talking about sports. They could be talking about whatever. Everybody watching it knows the answer to the question, right? They've caught these people saying the thing because that's the beauty of the internet, right? They can say, well, last week you said these words. Well, it was taken out of context. Pretty sure that you said this, right? And it's one of those things where you just have to kind of, I'm just wanting somebody one time to just look at Michael Fisher and say, yeah, we made this decision. Like, I think it's completely stupid that they put the Pixel Fold back on the store and it's the same price as the Pixel 9 Fold. Why the fuck would you buy the old one at the same price?
Yeah, because the old one's a beta product too. Like, it's not a final product. It should be half the price right now just so they could get rid of stock.
Right. But they clearly didn't put it on the store. But they're like, Aaron didn't get to go, but he made a comment. He's got 19 million followers, and that's why Google decided to do it. That's very possible. But my question is, why should they have to do that? Why couldn't they just tell Martin to go pound fucking sand? Like, I don't give a shit who you are, dude.
Well, it's also expensive. Like, are they still manufacturing the first gen ones? Because they shouldn't be. Because
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure they probably built like whatever, they probably had a run of like 250,000 units, right? And I think that's what
they probably, yeah, I was gonna say like it'd be interesting to see like how much they actually have left in stock, and how they justify not lowering the price to close out sales for those.
Yeah, like I said, I just thought it was funny because they clearly didn't put it on the store, right? And I guess it is there now and then they're like, and people are like, look what happened. We all stood up as a collective tech community and forced Google to do the thing. Okay, great. You forced them to put the phone on the store and you're not going to ever buy the damn thing. So good on you, dude. And by the way, could you make them do some other stuff like, that that you're not going to do? I was like, great. So,
they might be like banking on people who don't know any better. Or because like some of the Pixel 2, the Pixel Fold 2s, I'm just calling it that, because I'm not going to call it long bullshit.
It's much easier, yeah.
But it's already sold out in a lot of stuff. So maybe they're keeping it up just so that people don't know, which is super which if that's the case, that's super sleazy.
Scuzzy. Yeah, it's scuzzy as hell. And I guess that's another reason why. But I'm like, but my thing is this: if you didn't put the Fold there, why are you doing it now? Just because a bunch of tech people said you should put it on there? And I'm like, clearly you made a decision not to sell the phone anymore because you don't want to cannibalize sales or you want people to get the new Pixel Fold. I get it, right? But then why the backtracking all the time? God, it's just like, do these people sit in a room? And I guess they do, because I've dealt with some senior leadership before. And
they sit in a room weekly
and they talk about it, and they're like, but I'm like, it's such a bad look. It's like, and the fact that Aaron didn't get a review unit, right? And he didn't go to the event. And instead of Google saying, yeah, tough shit, we didn't have to invite you. Last time I checked, we don't owe you shit, dude. What they do? Oh, because of a snafu in their thingy, here's your thing, and you get a phone anyway. I'm just like, God, I would just one time like a company just to tell some of these people to go fucking kick rocks, dude.
They forgot me as well.
I would love. I know they forgot
that.
us. They forgot us. I actually own one of their phones. I got a Pixel Ring. I'm your dude. Like, I use the damn thing, right? It's funny, but it's just one of these days I would just love, and it's not because I have anything against Aaron. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I would just love one of these companies just to tell these people when they get all uppity in their fucking Twitter feed or whatever, just go, you know what? Here's from Google. Hey, Aaron, we didn't send you a phone because we don't give a shit what you think about any of it. And if you don't like it, you can complain about it all you want.
What about this, though, Sam? Do any of these influencers, tech YouTubers, would they do that to Apple?
I think they did. John Rettinger learned that fucking the hard way, didn't he? When he kind of came up against that, they broke his ass off the knees, didn't they? And so then, but here's the thing. I understand the lower creators, right? I get the people who are like, sub 250,000 subs, and that kind of thing. If you're a person, here's the thing. If you have a company where you can have employees and you're crushing millions of dollars a year, I don't want to hear about you having to take sponsorship deals.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to hear, stop. Just while you're behind. Again, it's not a personal thing. Please understand, folks, and anybody's listening to this, I don't care, because clearly, I guess, Joe, we've been trying to do it the right way, right? We're trying to basically be a nice guy and see if these people come on, but maybe if I throw them enough shade and just call them out for some of their shit, maybe they'll come on and just debunk me, because I'm just a dude, right? I'm just saying, though, I can understand people have got like 50,000 subs, or people like Luis, right, and Michael Peppertech, who were just trying to create, and it's hard for them to review phones because that's a lot of money they're spending.
And they have to have access. They like revoking early access is such a huge threat. Like even Michael Fisher was even talking about that in the ethics of phone reviews thing on Instagram, where like it's like the threat of let me put it this way.
He'll take access any way he can, he said, didn't he?
Right. Yes. You have to have that access. Otherwise you miss, especially if you're doing YouTube, you miss that content window and then you don't get served out. And so it's not an explicit threat, but the incentive is all there. And that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I agree. And and Andrew, would you agree with journalism right now? It's not about being truthful. Now it's getting copy out first.
Getting copy and getting engagement from that copy.
Right.
And that's why ChatGPT articles we're starting to see now, and from major news organizations, we see that's blatantly done by AI, because then you have to go back and
that's a whole other subject there, right?
That's a whole other subject.
I guess my question is, and this is a legitimate question, Andrew. I kind of miss the Walter Cronkite days. I miss those days where it wasn't like
Nobody, but the thing is, nobody knows what that actually is like anymore.
Right. It's what basically it was more about. It was about doing actual journalism, but you didn't have to be first, but you wanted to make sure that you had your sources correct. You made sure that or you were talking about a subject. You said up front, look, can't be independently confirmed. This is something that we're making, or you just have to say, well, we may have to wait a couple of days just because we don't have our facts straight, but we need to try to get those before just being out to copy, right? Just to be the first out, even if it's half-brained. I mean, look at anything. And if you watch, and I'm sure they had this, okay, I know it's huge in the United States where they'll have something happen, whatever the thing. And sure enough, you'll go on the alphabet soup TV shows, right? And they got all these people you never heard of who used to be a policy wonk at some kind of think tank and some bullshit. And they're talking about, well, if I were doing this, I think that. It's like you don't even know it's a developing story. And it's like you're basically talking about you don't have all the facts. And you're never maybe going to have the facts, but it's just like
sometimes there's no facts and it's just bullshit.
What I'm saying,
but it gets clicks.
Right. And that's what I wish we could kind of get back to, because I think that's where but maybe Andrew, maybe I'm being Pollyannish about this. Maybe that those days are over and that's dead and buried, and we've cut the head off, stuffed garlic in its mouth, and put a stake in its heart, right? And we're just going to bury it in the backyard, and it's never coming back because I don't do Americans or people just generally want that anymore? Do they like really what's happening, even though they get kind of salty about it and they like to complain? But do they actually kind of subconsciously want this? Do they enjoy the clown show and the fighting?
I think that people subconsciously want to feel good about something or bad about something. It's all about feels and not about objectivity, and because it's so much easier to get your little dopamine hit from something that either reinforces how you want. It's kind of like what you were saying about how like people are watching reviews to get reinforced on their decisions that they've already made. A lot of times it's more of it's about feels and not about like
a confirmation or emotional enforcement, reinforcement.
That yes, and even if it's not reinforcement, like there's also the whole aspect where people just really want to see the opposing side on something and having it be like, it's kind of like I'm not going to get into like politics, but it's like people who watch these political channels, and it's like it's not give like most people who watch political channels and commentary are not looking for something that's going to give both sides. They want something that's going to their specific thing. And it's a similar thing now with like news, because we have news agencies that cater to different subgroups, but it's all based off of feels, because that's what gets engagement, and engagement equals money.
Right. And so I guess that's what it is. I mean, it's just funny watching. Like I said, the event was really nice. I actually kind of caught parts of it after it. I was like, I thought they did a really good job. It didn't feel boring. It felt pretty nice. It was a nice, I wish they all were a little bit more engaging like that. I think Google did a pretty good job. And I do think the devices for all their criticisms that are going to be coming out, and obviously people get hands on, they'll, put them through their paces and kick the tires, as it were, and try things out. I think it actually went off pretty well. It
flowed really well. It did flow.
I guess
really
what drives me nuts is like, can we not have anything now where there just isn't this outrage bullshit all the time? And look at the Olympics. Look at all the stuff that was. I'm like, can't we just have the guy from Turkey who's 51? He's just like, I don't give a fuck about none of this. I'm just here in a t-shirt with a pair of glasses. Dude, that guy could have came out of your bedroom, like put his glasses on and go, what do we gotta do? Oh, air pistol? I'm about that shit. Boom, boom, boom. And get a silver medal. And like, he looked like the most, like, some dude that was just hanging out in your backyard one day. It was like, hey, let's go.
Sam, did I send you that meme where there's, the guy who knocked the high jump? He knocks with his penis? Yeah.
Oh, I know. It's like that guy had some balls. Oh, no.
Yeah, but he takes a lady back to the hotel, and she like puts her hand down there, and then she gets some Nike socks out.
it's therapeutic.
Right. It's just like at the end of the day,
that's journalism.
Lord. Right.
The Nike socks. It's not real.
There's just it seemed like every story that was pretty cool about the Olympics, right? Every other story that came out was like negative and controversial, and so but and so it's like the other day, this morning before the show came on, my wife was watching TikTok, and I just generally hate TikTok. I mean, it's cool, I guess, but whatever. This whole channel was nothing but the top 5 videos of dogs doing cool shit. That's all this was. It was like a dog, like, doing stuff. And it was just like this dog. It was like, and I thought to myself, I go, man, we don't have enough of this, right? Whenever you've had a bad day and you're hearing all this stuff and Team Pixel that, and, guys fighting girls in the Olympics and some Algerian, and like nobody gave a shit about any fucking boxer and women's boxing until that moment because it's the Olympics, right? But all of a sudden now everybody's going to jump through their hoops about the fact that some Algerian person beat up everybody, who actually lost to 9 people, by the way. 9 women, by the way.
That's why my favorite content, like my favorite video that I've come across on TikTok was the AI song about how it's like supposed to be like 1950s, and it's like a guy who glued his balls to his butthole. And it
okay,
is,
wow, this just went weird. All right, cool.
Right, but it's like it's more. That song is so catchy. Like it's like it's more catchy than it has any right to be.
It needs to be catchy for that subject.
Well, exactly. Well, and I just think it's funny that, considering the content of this show, that is something that kind of like put that, that was like throwing that threw that locomotive on the total.
It sounds like that.
Good luck with the monetization.
Oh, dude, we don't care. But did you see the Australian breakdancer chat? Oh,
Sam, we should rename this episode "Balls to Butthole."
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we'll call it balls to butt. No, not just your ass. Your actual starfish, dog. That's what I'm talking about.
So you can't take a poop, But no, like that's like a whole. There's lyrics about that in the song too. But actually, like the whole thing with the Olympics, like the breakdancing thing's happening, and I'm just like, why is it like bowling on here?
Well, here's my thing about the Olympics, and this is a real take. I actually don't think that any professional sport should be there. Like, I don't think they should have golf in the Olympics. I don't think they should have basketball, but it should be completely amateurs, right? Or golf.
Yeah, that's
if you're gonna have football, it's all a bunch of under 21 kids, like the B team people.
But it used to be, didn't it? So like
and we
is that way.
The soccer. Yeah, no, it's I think
soccer's
actually
under 23s.
All
right. Yeah, I think it was. I think we did in the United States because people got pretty good basketball. So those were getting kind of closer, and the United States is like, yeah, we own this sport. We can't be letting these people get close to us. So we'll just go ahead and bring out the dream team, which is like Bird and Magic and fucking Jordan, and be in goal by 100 million fucking points. And it's like, I just think it's funny because then you see stuff like, can anybody agree that Chinese diving is nuts? Have you watched any of that shit? They're so much better than everybody. It's bananas.
They have such a wonderful amount of discipline in their technique.
It's just crazy when they go in the water. Now, granted, they're smaller, right? You don't have anybody like Joe's size and Andrew's size, right? And
doing the bomb
and do it, and Joe would just be like can opener, just fucking
the belly flop,
right? It's just like it's completely bonkers. Like when these girls go up there and they're like standing on the board or handstanding from a platform, and they hit the water. It's like what the? I make more splashes pouring a glass of water in my sink than these. And it just then you see these other, and then you watch the other teams, right? The Americans get out there, and then there's some Canadians get out there, some British teams get up there, and they're just like, and they're good. Like you watch them, like that's a really good dive, but it's like you're playing for third. You're playing for fourth and third place, man. It's just like and then same thing with the Olympics. So it's just some of these things are just hilarious. Watch these teams that are just so much better. And it's just like insane how good Chinese teams have gotten at diving. It's bananas. And not just the women, but the men too. It's really, really fascinating to kind of watch. I do like that kind of stuff.
So what's your guys' favorite events then? Because for me, it's mostly like I love the swimming racing. I like the diving, and I like the gymnastics. Those are probably my main ones that I watch.
I like the gymnastics. It's kind of it's cool. I guess here's the thing about the gymnastics. I think all the stuff is awesome. Subjective scoring blows ass. Anytime there's a subjective score, I don't care what. Diving, gymnastics. That's why I like track. You start at that line, you cross this line, and if you do it at 9:32, then you win. And if you do it 9:34, you lose. Right? There's no, and same thing. Like I like the track and field. Like, dude, watch something as bonkers as like the hammer throw. Have you ever watched the hammer throw? How completely insane that is? How fast they're spinning around, the fact that they don't throw. Dude, I couldn't spin half that fast. I throw it into the cage literally every single time. I could probably do it for 10 years and probably never throw it actually into the field of play. I would throw it to the cage. I'd fall over. I'd throw it into the back. I drop the damn hammer, but just to watch them kind of start that off and how fast, I don't think people really realize.
And to not go over that line as well, right?
Right. And that little
spinning that fast.
Same thing with, I like track and field. I will tell you that I'm more of a Winter Olympics person. I like the Winter Games. The only problem I don't like about Winter Games is pretty exclusionary, right? Because there are countries, and everybody can run track and field, right? Not everybody can luge, because if you live in a country like, I don't know, Niger or Chad, right, or Ethiopia, not a lot of snow. I mean, they don't probably have a really, everybody made fun of the swim team, the Cool Runnings, right? The Jamaican bobsled team, right? Because they're track and field people, and they had an actual competitor. It's the problem I have with the Winter Olympics is it kind of excludes countries that are, warm and don't have developed winter sports, because they don't have a winter, right? It's hard to train in winter sports when it hasn't snowed in your country since the beginning of time, right? It's kind of sucks.
It's funny. Have you seen the Eddie the Eagle film?
Yeah, it's really It's
so a lot of his training wasn't on snow,
right? And so that's why I like the events, because my favorite event I love the winter. I like the luge and the bobsled, and I love the biathlon. The biathlon is one of my favorites. The skiing and the shooting is really, really cool. So I don't know. I just wish we had days where you could watch the Olympics and you see really cool shit. You see stuff that's kind of lame, and you just kind of go, that guy's lame, or that situation's lame. But everything
Sam, we live in a world where people bask in people's failure.
Right.
This is why I love curling. I just like curling. It's one of the most pure Winter Olympic sports.
And Canadians are really good at it, right? Guys from Minnesota.
Yeah. Anytime I'm playing like shuffleboard, I'm just imagining myself going.
Plus, what's kind of cool is what I'd like is kind of cool is the fact that curling is the kind of sport where you could have dudes that are at the pub that are just crushing natty lights all day, and they can come out there and just win a gold medal. That's great. All these other sports that have to be super focused and train every day and 30 hours a week, right? And they're just in the gym and they're peak physical specimens. And you got guys that curling just beer guts, like the John Daly of sports, right? Some guy that's out there just big fat guy, drunk on the course, winning tournaments, and just drinking 25 natural lights, right? And going out there, dude, it's it's so great. It's watching that, and the fact that he's totally dude, I don't really care about none of this stuff. It's all just golf. Who gives a shit, right? I'm just out here hitting balls, having a couple of suds, actually quite a few suds, right? And then being coked out of his head, and then playing Tiger. And then he made a comment that he beat Tiger Woods drunk one day. How awesome is that? You can sit there and go, I beat Tiger Woods in a stroke match, and I was literally fucking hungover and 10 gallons of whiskey in, right? And you're I still beat this guy.
Well,
I just think it's kind of, I think it's fantastic. And you're right, Aditya. Cornhole. Well, wait a minute.
I got a hot take on that.
What the hell is that?
Well, it's coming from Aditya, so that could be a double entendre. So,
but assuming it's the beanbag throwing game.
Yeah, that's what cornhole is, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I got a hot take.
Let me say, before you get to, I agree. And so Joe, before you ask, since you recognize the game when we described it, do they have another name for it in the UK? Like Baggers or some bullshit like that or something?
Baggers would be awesome.
Yeah, actually, it's probably a better name.
Actually, we call them beanbags, actually.
That's that's what they are. It's the bag. Right. But the sport itself in the United States is called cornhole. Do they call that in the UK cornhole? Do they call it baggers or? I
didn't realize it was a sport. I thought it was a sport. I thought.
It's not like fucking Premiership football. I mean, it's not like that. But I'm assuming it's the same thing, right? You have got the kind of the inclined.
Yeah. When I went Wingfest, there was a bar that had it next to it, and you had to go. Yeah.
But can I ask you a question though? Isn't that an American thing?
What?
Probably
a Wingfest. I think that's kind of an American. It's like a barbecue festival.
Probably is originally, but this one's been going for quite some time now.
Oh, I know, and I think it's great because anything we can do to get some of that stuff. I just wish it was both ways. Right? I wish we could get some of the British shit to come over.
Here's the difference, though. We want to make sure you guys get the good food because we want the food that you guys got from Empire. Because all your guys' best food is the stuff that you get, like Indian food and whatnot.
Yeah.
Takeaways and mash, though.
Chip shops. Although, thanks for sending me that video of the chip shop. That's funny. That was a funny video. The guy's the chip shop. He's like, "You want it in it?" Oh, I want
Yeah,
it on the side or in it. And he gives him a little side. Okay, that's cool. But
It goes one on the side, innit?
right. Plus, and also because I still think that if you're going to a football game, especially in the United States, because it's going to get cold in the in the stadiums or outside, you need to have both. That should be a thing. Like I got to get that. I got to get
beef tea.
It's a beef tea, dude. And then the same thing with Canada, right? Why isn't poutine a thing in the United States, especially Americans? It's cheese, it's gravy, it's so American, it's criminal, and yet you can't find it anywhere. I'm like, dude, we got to get the poutine here in the United States.
It's the name. I bet you anything.
You can rebrand it.
I was gonna say if it was rebranded, it'd probably do great.
Yeah, fish and chips.
Super special, fun gravy cheese deliciousness, and it would probably sell more.
We'll just call it heart attack with gravy.
Yeah. Have like an FDA warning, and it would sell really great.
Right.
What if it's poutine ultra?
Yeah, the ultra. Oh god.
Well, I think
$1,000. Oh shit.
I just think that or poutine pro max. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
but I think it's just because it sounds too French and people just don't like flavors. The name. So that's Andrew's.
Just think of it. Back in the G5 days, you could just fill your G5 with poutine.
American gravy. Yeah, but it's got the cheese curd. So you got to get that in there. And I don't like necessarily American because it isn't American. It's Canadian. So gravy fries is good. Cheesy gravy curds fries. Something. Damn, I got to come up with that. So
any topped fries is good, right?
This will land
Vladimir Poutine.
This will land really well in the US. Yeah, Vladimir Poutine.
No, as long as you sear it.
Deech is a marketing genius.
Or we can deep fry it. If we could deep fry it, Andrew, that would be good.
You just blowtorch it,
So at the end of the day, so we'll just circle back to the Pixel event. I think the Pixels are nice. I know Joe's gonna get it, right? And I haven't had a chance to look at some of the hardware. And Andrew, have you had a chance to go to a Best Buy or see?
No, I've not actually. So it's weird. Like this, I think after my Sony, I think I am going to go with the Pixel just because that's the one major brand in the United States I've not actually ever owned.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I thought you had a Pixel before. Maybe did you have a Nexus device back? I don't know. I thought you had something back in the day.
I had a Nexus 7 back in the day. But But no, I've never actually owned. Of all the manufacturers that are available in the U.S. and North America, I've not owned a Motorola. Though my dad has a Motorola, but I've also never owned a Pixel. And part of that has just been because either camera hardware wasn't what I wanted, or a lot of it was having to do with I was still with LG, so I wanted the SD card slots.
Mm-hmm. And the headphone jack and stuff like that too. Yeah.
Right. And so now I've kind of I've accepted the fact that my next phone's not going to have an SD card slot. So, because I'm not going to look at Sony after this, just because even though they've kind of expanded, it's just the way their camera app is kind of not, they do a new camera app and it's lost a lot of functionality, at least at launch, compared to the previous one. And so, but with the Pixels, it's I am debating whether I should go with this one or wait till the next generation, which is going to have the better processors.
Next generation, I'd say would be better, but
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm more excited.
It's a shame too because I really did like. I still am a fan of Sony. I had a couple experiences, and I really thought that the phones are really, really good. They
still are really, really good. So
yeah,
it's just not gone where it could have gone.
Right. Updates, and it's like the update situation. Like I would hold on to my Xperia 1 Mark V for years and years, but it's the update situation is going to be bad. Is not great, and then I'm just not attracted to their Mark 6 now that they've gotten rid of the diving board form factor.
Well, someone asked me the question, should I get a Mark 6? I said no. Stick with your 5. Don't bother.
It's just the pure downside of the 5 is software support.
Yeah. Well, like I said, at least it seems like with the Pixel, you'll be better off. And I have the Motorola, and I've still been, to me, in the United States. Now, maybe if you have access to the UK, you can get other Realmes or Vivos and those kind of phones. You have the Nords, right? Those kind of things.
Honors.
But I think pound for pound for mid range and lower end devices, Motorola. Is really, really solid. Now you can get a 7A or an 8A, right? You can get a budget, Pixel device and be okay. But I still think that what Moto brings to the table, I think they've gotten better. Moto still struggles with their software updates, but the features on a Moto are really, really good. I like the clean software and the double chop for the light and the twist for the camera. And I just like Motos, man. And then, like I said, I really think that they're really good, and especially when you consider you can go get the Moto G Stylus 24 for like $350. And it's a pretty good phone. I mean, it's not going to win you any camera awards, right? But it's for what people like your dad or other people are using it for. It's perfectly comfortable taking pictures outside, and you can take pictures of, it'll work. It's not, it's not bleeding edge camera tech. It's a Motorola, but it gets the job done, and I think they do a pretty good job.
Well, my dad ended up buying so he's been on like a Moto Z4 for a long time, and like yeah, I know. He has a bad habit of like, I like this model, so I'll just keep repeatedly buying this model whenever it does. I'm like, please stop doing that, please. Oh my God. And
it's been 4 years.
I'll go get the battery replaced for $100. So I'm like, that's pissing your money away. But yeah. So I like straight up told him, I was like, Dad, because he bought the new one without consulting, because he doesn't look carefully when he buys any of them, because the battery was shit on this one.
It's just right.
Yeah, and I was like, Dad, under no circumstances am I going to sign off on you buying another Moto Z4 after this one inevitably dies.
He's gonna buy 8 of them and put them on a shelf, and when it dies, he's just gonna take the new one out and run. Zip
I know. I'm like, I was like, I will not help you. I was like, basically like nicely saying like, I will not assist you.
Andrew's having intervention with father. Dad, say no to the Z4.
Yeah, I'm like, get something newer just so that you cover your own ass.
Right.
So
just get him a new one, right, and put it in a Z4 box.
Right.
Oh, you're right.
So I guess. So are you looking at this current crop of the Pixel 9s? Is that maybe what's going to be your segue to the Pixel brand? Or are you going to hold on to the Sony for maybe another year or so just to kind of ride out that trend? Have you really thought about that much, or what do you think?
I've kind of gone back and forth. I think I'm going to hold on to this one for a little bit because ultimately I like the idea of getting like a Pixel Fold or a foldable just to try it. And so it's like, it's one of those things where I kind of do want to wait for the to see the fruits of the new chipsets that are going to get manufactured next year. So, and when did I get my Xperia? I ended up getting that about late summer, early fall of last year.
Okay.
So it's worked really, really well. I've not had any issues with it really. Only issues I've had.
I loved it.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, it's great.
The Mark V, yeah.
It's great. The only thing I'd say I've had issues with, and it's not Sony's issue, it's Google's issue, is Google Maps sucks. It's awful now. Like Google Maps, like I have issues where if I switch out of the app, if I switch to multitasking and then go back, there's about a 35% chance that it's just going to be like zoomed out. Everything's going to be small, and all the UI is just like gone. I have to force close the app and reopen it back up. And Google Maps has all sorts of issues. Like,
so I have issues with this Vivo because obviously it's a Chinese variant, and I get little bugs like that.
Yeah.
And Jimmy's gonna have to wait. He can try the O2 Plus plan. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. So that'd be kind of nice for Jimmy. So that way, it sounds like a pretty good deal. That the O2 Plus plan, if you have access to O2 and you're in the UK,
Switch Up's brilliant.
The Switch Up's pretty good. I mean, and obviously we're not sponsored by O2. I know Joe works for them, but that doesn't mean you have to buy them. But it sounds like a pretty good deal, right, for consumers, right? You can switch up pretty frequently. I wish we had something comparable to that in the United States. We kind of don't. I mean, I guess they do have they have ready up
and after your device, okay?
Right. Don't drop it down a flight of stairs. Probably put a case on it, and if you don't want a case and you want to keep it shiny, you could skin your shit, right? extremeskins.co.uk. You could put some skins on your phone. They got skins for headsets, right? Because now they got the Kim Kardashian Beats that are brown. I don't know why you'd want to spend $350 for the same set of headphones. I'm not about that life. No judgments. If you want to buy the Kim Kardashian shit brown ones for $350, when you can buy the regular ones for $175, who am I to argue? Spend your money how you want. But if you don't like the color, if you just want to protect it, but also maybe get some flair on it, go get yourself some. They have console skins, phones, all sorts of stuff. Go check them out. It's extremeskins.co.uk. They have deals on Tuesdays. I believe they like buy one, get ones and shit like that. It's pretty good. You should check them out. We love them. And Yeah, it's pretty good. So check them out. Tell them we sent you and get yourself one. Get a color you like or get a couple. Buy a few. If you get a buy one, get one. If you were kind of maybe the red, maybe the Yakuza, shit, get them both. Have yourself a good time. So at the end of the day, check them out and let them know we sent you. They're a good group of mates over there at the Extremes and stuff. So, Joe, how does switch up work? Well, maybe you should talk to Andrew offline because Andrew's.
Yeah, I'm just messaging now as we speak.
Cool. Sounds good. So an upgrade if you have O2 or you're thinking about switching O2 or whatever, talk to Joe. Joe's your man. He can help you out, at least answer questions for you. And we're at
my opinions are my own. Okay.
Right. He doesn't represent O2 in any way. It's just Joe trying to help local folks out. Just get the phone that works for him and not get not overpay for a plan and not overpay for device and try to find out what they really need.
If you lose service, go to your local store. Please do not DM me. Right.
Don't call Joe because Joe's not a tech. He's just some dude with great hair.
He does not have account access.
Right. No. He doesn't have pseudo access. Okay, is that what it is? Right? Pseudo into the box, right? Okay. Anyways, anybody who's a pseudo, anybody who does that knows what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. It's okay. So anyway, and Andrew, we're at 1:15. Man, thank you so much. I know you've been busy. I know you got a lot going on. We were trying to coordinate this for a couple of weeks now, and thanks so much for coming on and just being a general good dude and a fan of the show and always having a great approach to conversations and our talks, man. I really
thank you so much for having me. I can't even believe it's been like an hour and 15 minutes already. Like it feels like it's been 10-15 minutes.
Right. And I found out, Joe, that I don't know what the normal runtime on the phone show chat is, but I think yesterday's show was like an hour 20, which I think is long, which is pretty long for them. I don't know if that was my fault.
Yeah. Probably bit longer for them,
but I didn't feel like I really was like super like this, right? I wasn't talking a lot. I just answered a question. On their show, I try to be a lot more have more brevity and be a little bit more kind of direct and just respond. And I figure if I'm a guest on your show, I can't be a complete moron. I have to kind of be a little bit better of a better person. Maybe. I don't know. This is a good show, so check it out. And that's it. So, and yeah, it's an hour and 15 minutes. We always wonder, like, how are we going to fill the show with content? Like when we start talking, and then it always feels like we actually have the reverse problem. We always run out of time and can't get everything that we want to talk about. So that just means we're going to have you on again sometime soon. Before the end of the year, we'll have another chat and bring it. Yeah, it would be fun, man. Like I said, and yeah, you're well, Brad. Thank you so much. Down in St. Lucia, I know you were down there enjoying the. Man, it sounds good to be on a Caribbean. Dude, I wish I was on an island. Dude, that sounds so good. Like you live there. God, it's so great.
No,
compared to Missouri. Well, it's bad. Missouri's bad.
Missouri is in the Georgia segment, the sweaty Georgia segment of the summer.
Right. This sucks. Yeah, So it just sounds St. Lucia sounds a lot better than Missouri most times. Just put it out there. So anyway, Joe, anything else before we sign off for the day? Any words of wisdom, thoughts?
Words of wisdom from me. Are you sure?
I thought, well, maybe after 5 years, something would click, and you'd have something that you've been sitting on for a couple of months, and you just want to say, "Hey, man, this." No,
I'm still working on it, mate. Give me a couple more years, and
a couple more years. Sounds good. Well, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep showing up every week. So again, we'll be back next Sunday. I don't know about a guest lined up. We have some stuff in the works for cooking. Right, we're stirring up the pot. We're trying to cook up some stuff. And
with Jesse Pinkman. And Walter White.
Not that kind of cooking. I don't know what's going on.
You're definitely Walter White. I'll be Pinkman, I guess.
Right. I guess that sounds good. All right. That sounds good. So now we're talking about drug manufacturing. That's not where we wanted to be anyway. So
do you know what, Captain? You can be Sol.
Right. If we weren't demonetized, that might have did it right there. And Sam the cook. Yeah, actually, I do cook, but I'm not cooking blue methamphetamine. That's not my thing. So anyway,
no, it's blue smartphones.
Yeah, blue smartphones, cases, skins, something. Anyway, so we'll be back next Sunday with another awesome and brilliant and pithy and fantastic show of the Nomad Type Project with Sam and Joe. And if not, we'll just be our general selves, and it'll be a good show anyway. And everybody, thanks for coming in. Love the chat. All the people, Nick and Jimmy.
You guys are all awesome.
I mean, there's so many people now today on this chat, and everybody's so good about the comments and kind of talking. And I'm telling you, that is so much fun watching the engagement and kind of picking off that. And we kind of look forward to that. And me and Joe liked when we don't have a guest, especially, we really kind of hit on that. So please keep doing that and being awesome people and enjoying your tech and be engaged. And if you want to throw some shade in a good way and kind of, some of these creators.
That's one thing I
engage
want to
on-
say quickly before we go, Sam.
Yeah.
We really do need to get the MeWe going, because some of the conversations these guys have in the chat is awesome, and they could be doing that on MeWe together more often.
Yeah, and I will take the responsibility of me not being really good about social engagement. I just am not. But yeah, we got to do that.
I'm not either.
Well, we got to do better at that as a collective
Yes,
team. Right?
we
It's
have
not
got
just
to do better.
not just everybody, right? It's Joe and I. We need to be better stewards of our MeWe channel. So we will put the link up there. We will try to make sure we do that. But try to put comments in there. But
I'm going
just
to put
again,
a link to your PSC appearance in our MeWe, okay?
absolutely, and then we'll do that as well. But thank you, Andrew, so much for coming on and always having great backgrounds and having great thoughts and great conversation. We really appreciate it.
Let's not leave it as long next time.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I'll be available. Yeah,
sounds
let me
good.
on whenever.
All right. Well, maybe you won't move
Yes.
again for at least another couple of weeks. Anyway, so for myself, for Andrew, FatProduce, and Joe, thank you so much for tuning into the Nomad Tech Project. Catch it later on the YouTube channel. If you want to watch this silliness, you can see our faces. And if not, you can download it on your favorite podcast aggregator. Download it, listen later. Tell all your friends. Let them know we sent you, and let them know that maybe if you talk to Aaron or Michael Fisher or anybody else, tell them that we were giving them a little bit of shade, but we love them anyway. We're fans. We just we're just having a good conversation. If they want to come on and defend their positions or tell me to go get bent, that's cool. We're always here. So sounds good.
If they want a good time, come and join us. That's selling us,
anyway,
mate. You don't know nothing about marketing. Just tell them if
No,
they want a good time, go on the Nomad Tech Project.
I don't just say that for a good time call. It's a different connotation to me. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying.
Put it on the loo wall. Anyway, for myself, for Joe, for Andrew, thanks so much, guys. See you next week. Be excellent to each other. Enjoy your tech. Buy whatever phone you want and talk about it. And just, try not to be an asshole. Don't be a dick. And we'll see you next Sunday. Take care, everybody. Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.